I'll start from the man on my extreme right, man from Shelter Africa. Since his name came up too, please, over to you.
Okay, thank you. I think Singh has said everything. I just want to kind of make a comment, and this is around regulation. And how I think that regulation increasingly must play a role in finding a solution to addressing the problem that those data is speaking to. The market behaves in a natural way. It will naturally gravitate towards segments where the returns are higher, and that is what you're seeing when you have houses across the country, not only in Abuja, where developers as natural market players are gravitating towards the higher end of the market, even though the market demand is not significantly there. That is just the way that market behaves. And it's very difficult to do anything about that. The only solution that socio-economic policy has found to that is regulation. That occasionally you have to constrain market policies, market players, and market resources in the direction that you want it to go as a social policy. And if we are saying, I think from that data, that a significant amount of housing demand is occurring in a certain segment of the market, then there's a big obligation for us to look at regulatory instruments that we can use to direct market activity in that area. And let me just give some example, and I think perhaps for Nigeria, and I will share some experiences that from Shelter I think we've picked from other countries, is your planning. The planning system is the most significant tool that government has to redirect market forces towards providing housing in the markets, towards the population where you need it to be.
Now I want to have Dave, you have some comments?
Thank you. So many of the dignitaries this morning warned us to not go back into the same old conversations that we had last year. But I'm going to start with one sentence on that, and that is that housing is a sector of fundamentals. If we can't access land, if we do not have title, if we cannot access infrastructure when we build developments, if we do not have sufficient regulation, this sector won't work whatever. So yes, I agree, let's move on to new things, but I think we should constantly be looking at those very basic fundamentals that make a sector work to make sure that we are constantly improving how that works. And Africa has some amazing experiences of how those things have come right in countries. And I'll share some of those thoughts in my 3 minutes here. Affordability we've heard a lot about. Let's just bear the stats in mind. A $20,000 house in this country is affordable to only about 16% of households if they can get finance. A $10,000 house is affordable only to 38% of households if they can finance that product. A $7,500 house, less than 3 million naira, is affordable to only half, just over half, of Nigerian households. So we really need to be looking significantly down market.
Thank you very much. I'm going to build up from the last discussion, because my approach usually as a developer in this space is always I like to look at the issue both from construction finance, which is critical. As we have heard from the last speaker, the ultimate cost of the housing is very critical. And unless we're able to control critical cost elements along the value chain, the end cost is always unaffordable to consumers. So I always like to focus a lot on construction finance, because that's where the funding is coming from. And my experience in this industry, and that's my advice also, is that we need to focus a bit more on how to tap long-term financing, especially from the capital market. We at UPDC, of course I'm retiring from UPDC now, but over the past 7-8 years, we've been able to creatively, in spite of all the challenges, been able to creatively raise significant funding at reasonable cost. In 2010, for example, we issued a 15 billion bond at 10%, moratorium of 6 months over a 5-year period. That helped us to fast track our developments In 2012, we floated a REIT, 24 billion. That also brought significant cash into the business. When rates fell down briefly, in 2015, we used a CP as a bridging facility, 24 billion, at 11%. Just imagine how much you save when interest rate was going generally for around 18, 20, 25%, and you're able to raise funding at 11%. You save a lot of money. This year also, we had raised another fund. We will raise the first tranche of a 15 billion naira fund. So we need to look beyond what we understand as the traditional means of financing our construction.
The first speaker made mention of our challenges, which is basically that of population. It has been a problem to especially the African countries, to such an extent that the population increases astronomically with very low infrastructure. At the same time, the low income capacity of the population, to which we find that housing finance has become a major problem. The other aspect which has been discussed is that of the cost of housing. The last speaker has just mentioned that the cost of the housing has been a challenge in terms of the land. Land usually constitutes about 15 to 20% in Nigeria for you to build into it. The infrastructure costs similar 15 to 20%. You'll find that the cost of funds, because it has to be factored into that, is between also 15 to 20, up to 20-something%. So all these ones are the factors that usually increase the cost of housing finance in the country. Apart from the fact that most of the building materials have foreign components, you find that even the cost of foreign exchange is another factor.